Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Radio Dead Air Tech Q&A. You've got questions. You've got guesses. I'm Nash. I've been doing Radio Dead Air for ages. But in addition to that, I'm also an IT professional. With me, as always, my producer, Mike Gearman, who also works in IT. If you have tech questions for us, by all means, fire away. Send those to requests at radiodeadair.com, and we will do our best to help you. How you doing, Mike?
Oh, not too bad. I have an aggravation with some packages that I ordered. They're supposed to go to a local delivery place by today. Guess when they got delivered? 5 minutes ago.
Oh, okay. Well, that's not so bad.
I was hoping before lunch so I could pick them up and have them. Not that I need them for the show. I just wanted to have that errand checked off.
All right. Well, it has been yet another week of stuff. And you remember like was it last year? I felt like late last year or maybe mid last year. Time has gotten a little, fluid. Microsoft had that.
Time's weird.
Is there like a delay from when I talk and you hear me?
No, I see you talking. It's just that I start to say something and then you've said something already and you get, there's probably a little bit of delay.
Microsoft had a little bit of bug in one of their services last year and it crashed a whole bunch of the world. And
yeah, I remember that. And the only things that didn't crash were the stuff that was running on hardware that was so old that it was running 2 or 3 versions of Microsoft's operating system. And so not only didn't get this update, but couldn't have gotten the update.
Yeah. So in this case, now this happened with Amazon's AWS, Amazon Web Services, which hosts a shocking amount of traffic on the internet. Like you cannot process how much traffic on the internet AWS handles for so many different applications, for so many different people.
It didn't affect us at work because we're primarily an Azure outfit. It did affect some of my coworkers in non-directly work-related things because it turns out their online courses were run through Amazon Web Services.
Yeah, Amazon Web Services is because of their, I don't know how they've done it. They've turned themselves into a point of failure for the entire internet. And that was quite apparent this past week because one little bug and for hours, tons of the internet was down. I believe Signal was down at some places. When I say Signal, I mean the app Signal, not Signal, but Signal. There was Blue Sky out? I know there were a couple of other things that were just a lot.
I don't think Blue Sky itself was out because I learned about the Amazon outage on Blue Sky. Either that or they had a fallback that was picking up the slack. And so it was interesting what caused the bug. They have a special domain name service system to handle things like domain name service was what turns Twitch.tv into an IP address.
Yeah, everything on the internet is actually IP addresses. You just don't see them because they're hidden behind domain names. And that's what a domain name server is for. It's to fit those together.
Yeah, and of course the primary reason for this is because we can remember things like Twitch.tv. We can't necessarily remember all the IP addresses that we might want to go to. So they've got a special system that says, hey, this IP address can be either here or here. Wish I had a third arm for this, like Genie, or here, or here, or here, or here, simultaneously for load balancing of web servers. But this is all done dynamically. And so they've got systems in there going, this IP address now points here. Oh, and 10 minutes later, now it's pointing here. And now it's pointing here. And two of them got into a slap fight.
So pretty much Amazon systems, AWS systems, didn't know where things on the web were anymore. And it was pointing things to the wrong places. And as you might know, if you mistype a web address, if you go into your browser and you type something wrong, you'll get that doesn't exist. It's kind of the same thing happened here.
Let's be clear. The best thing that will happen to you is you get a that doesn't exist. You could also get scam sites and malware very easily.
Yeah. So Snapchat, Roblox, Fortnite, Signal, Robinhood, online broker, the McDonald's app, Starbucks, like DoorDash had issues. It just everywhere, so much of the internet. And it's unsettling and very bad that we have taken what is supposed to be a distributed network with redundancy to allow itself to withstand. I mean, you might correct me if I'm wrong, wasn't one of the original intentions of the internet was to survive a nuke?
I don't know if it was necessarily to survive a nuke, but so there'd be communication protocols that would route around extensive damage.
Yeah. And now we've all said, nah, we're just going to go pipe it through this one place. And if it goes down, we're all screwed.
And well, another thing that was interesting to me, and I haven't found any story that goes into this depth on it, it was Amazon Web Services East that was down.
Mm.
West was still okay-ish, but East is apparently the default choice when you're setting up your Amazon Web Services, and most people don't change off the default choice. Even if your company is, say, in California, and you might go, West makes more sense to us, but East was what was selected by default.
Yeah. So, and it's not just that it was a big point of failure. It was a point of failure over something so trivial, something so small, and that was like a Jenga block, yanked the whole thing down. That's unsettling too.
Yeah, there's that XKCD comic about that. And if you don't know what that is, audience, please just look up XKCD Jenga. I believe will get you the comic.
There's also I don't know. We don't know if vibe coding was involved, but my gut says something this stupid with something this minor having this much impact. I'm feeling like vibe coding might have happened here. And I wonder if we're going to see more of this shit over time. Something we've seen quite often
from the article, it sounds like it was a race condition that was happening. Now, whether that was caused by vibe coding, yeah, but it was a race condition / slap fight that one version of the thing was saying, these are the updates, but I'm not telling you that right now. The other one said, oh, he's not talking. These are the updates. Now these are the updates. Those were timed out. And these were the update. And just
another thing that's kept happening over and over for a long time now is internet connected devices suddenly being useless when there's no internet. We had a wonderful example of that this week from a company called 8 Sleep that makes $2,500 mattress toppers. $2,000 mattress toppers. Now, okay, the whole bed.
This is where I repeat my common line whenever we have something expensive that is stupid, and that is, I've paid less for a car.
Like $2,000 for a brand new bed, mattresses, frame, the whole bit. That's not exactly, cheap, but that's on the reasonable side for a whole bed. $2,000. That would make sense for a mattress topper. But it gets dumber. This is a mattress topper with a subscription. And what it does is it adjusts temperature. What else does this damn thing do? It can't just be temperature.
The elevation. No, adjust the elevation. Now, I'm unclear if that's the elevation of the bed. Can it bend? Or does it just go up, down, up, down? And I can see that sort of thing being useful. Mind you, you want a certain height when you get in and out of bed, but maybe you want it to be different to keep the chihuahua from jumping in the bed after you've gone to bed.
Well, what happened is there was no mechanism within the application or the mattress topper that could take into account the internet not being there.
Yeah.
So when AWS went down, suddenly you couldn't adjust the temperature of this thing that's on your bed. You couldn't adjust the elevation of this thing that's on your bed. And if it's just jacking up the heat over and over, that's going to make sleep kind of irritating. And because it's so damn complicated, that makes it a little more difficult to, what are you going to do? Yank the entire thing off the bed, or are you going to go sleep on the couch? I mean,
I would just unplug it if it was getting too warm. That's me. I feel like that's an overly simple solution, but that no one in the article mentioned doing. And I'm like,
it probably has a battery. It probably has a battery. Everything's got a damn battery.
I think for heating a bed, it would need a plug. That's just me.
One side of the bed set itself to 110 Fahrenheit and wouldn't turn down. Another user said the bed was stuck in an inclined position. Yeah, so the temperature, they only just added an offline mode after this. Oh, yeah. Like, how is that
now,
not?
The best part of that, Nash, is the users of this have been complaining about the lack of offline feature controls basically since this came out. They said, we'd like it. We'd like an offline mode. Oh, you don't need an offline mode. No, we need an offline mode. No, you don't need an offline mode. We need an offline mode. You don't need an offline mode. Amazon crashes. Okay, so we're going to add an offline mode. Now, the reason the company, of course, doesn't want to do an offline mode is because then you could disconnect it from the internet and stop paying the subscription fee and just control your bed.
Yeah, the whole making this recurring charge, this software as a service, or this hardware as a service, which is the hell, this hardware as a service thing, I thought we'd gotten this shit out of our system 10 years ago when the Internet of Things fell right on its face. Because now it took me 10 years, like for about a straight decade, I wouldn't touch anything in our house that would be connected to our network. I would not do it. I'd be like, no. If I need a remote light switch, I've got this one that runs off a radio signal. It doesn't go near Wi-Fi. My thermostat, none of this stuff goes near the internet. Now we've managed to get enough control over these things where we have local control of our devices. I go into my router and I say, okay, you can't talk to the internet. You can't talk to the internet. You can't talk. And bunches of my stuff have their internet access just totally blocked. Like our cameras that we have set up.
As they should.
Yeah. Those, even if I trust the company not to do it, I still tell the cameras, you can't talk to the internet. You're blocked. Only local. You can only talk to anything that's on our Wi-Fi network. That was not an option for a lot of devices a while back. That was like, you couldn't, if they could not connect to online, they were useless. And that's also why I got rid of a bunch of those Wyze cameras, because that became apparent. We had limited control over the device. Now I've got Tapo devices, which do have the internet options for it. I just block them. And my devices still work. The switches still work. So I'm comfortable with that now. I thought we had gotten this stupid crap out of our system because now we have stuff like Zigbee, we have Matter, we've got things that you could... No, now people are still paying $2,000 for a subscription bed. Why?
I don't know.
Well, one last news story this week. Over the last few weeks, people have, in a panic, tried to figure out what to do about Windows. Some people vehemently wanted to stick to Windows 10. Some people were reluctantly moving to Windows 11. Some people had already done so and didn't matter to them. But everybody was like, crap, now what do I do? Okay, Microsoft convinced
we're in that at work.
So Microsoft convinced a whole bunch of people to come to Windows 11. Great. Yeah, now they got a big ass bug.
The first monthly patch after they said, "Hey, this is the Windows 10 end of life. You got to switch." Our first monthly patch. Oh, it's buggy as hell.
Yeah, mainly what this one did is it broke HTTP connections over localhost locally in your computer. Now that sounds like that doesn't sound like a big deal, because isn't HTTP for talking to the internet? Not entirely. There are a lot of applications that use the localhost designation. That's 127.0.0.1. They use that for internal features, and Windows sometimes talks to devices that way, and other they talk to each other that way.
A great example of this for probably a number of our audience is Plex. Plex uses 127.0.0.1. And this patch potentially broke your Plex, which people notice.
Yeah, when your media server stops working, it's an issue. This applied to things where if you had stuff on a local network, it could have been an issue. Another issue prevented certain documents in File Explorer from opening in the preview pane due to an incorrect security warning. That's one of those things that, as long as I've been in IT, you throw a security warning at an end user and they have a heart attack.
They panic. And now the preview thing is a good thing to note, and there have been security issues before. There was several years ago a bug, an exploitable bug in the preview pane for basically every file. Not only did Windows have to patch it, but every program that utilized the preview pane also had to issue a patch. And where that became interesting for me at work, one of those programs is AutoCAD. And they pushed down the patch for AutoCAD for that thing at work. The problem is, whoever it was at the NetOps level who pushed down that patch left their own computer's security settings on the patch. And it's a mandatory DLL that AutoCAD needed to launch. And do you want to know what the best part was? They wouldn't let me put in a ticket for my 20 affected users in my area. No, 20 individual tickets had to be put in to fix NetOps' own mistake.
There was also some Logitech devices suddenly stopped working. So people were like in the Windows recovery environment and their mouse and keyboard weren't working. That's great. Well, Microsoft says they're aware of the error. They're aware of the error. They are rolling out a follow-up patch. So, but this is kind of a bad look immediately to have something this big and this stupid. Now, you might be asking...
It's like saying, we've knocked down your favorite taco place to put up a brand new version of a slightly different taco place. And on opening day, we gave everyone diarrhea.
Do you miss 90s Taco Bell that much? Do you miss them that much?
No, not really.
So Why, you might be asking yourself, why does this happen with Microsoft? They are, after all, one of the biggest software companies on the planet. And in addition to that, Windows is the largest used operating system on the planet. So you're asking, why is this happening? Microsoft over the years has been downsizing itself to death. And one of the big things that has been downsized at Windows, at least in the Windows division, is what are they, testing?
QA.
Yeah, quality assurance testing. That's when someone gets the software, they run it on innumerable devices. Because keep in mind, Windows runs on so many devices and there are so many configurations. They used to have people that would run as many configurations as they possibly could to try to spot bugs. That section has been squeezed to almost nothing, which is why you end up with stupid bugs like this almost immediately after the big push to get everybody on Windows 11. So be aware of that. Look out for some updates. I'm sorry, everything is bullshit. Anyway, all right, let's move on to your questions. Again, if you have tech questions for us, you can send those to requests@radiodeadair.com. We only got a few this week. It's a pretty straightforward one. It's from Danny. Hey guys, do you and Mike have any advice about what to upgrade right now before economic stuff gets worse?
I would say the oldest components on your system is probably the best things to upgrade. If that's, well, it's basically where's the bottlenecks on your system? What is slowing your system down? Is it going to be the processor? Is it going to be the memory? Is it going to be the video card? If you can upgrade in something in that neighborhood, that's what I would look at.
Honestly, things right now, the current situation, and it's not the prices are bad, but the problem is they're going to get worse. We're starting to see a run on RAM and flash memory. So that means DDR5 and SSDs. And that, I haven't seen the price on hard drives either, but that might start be going up anyway. That is, those are, the prices on those are already bad and they're poised to get worse. And the reason why is every freaking data center is grabbing all the RAM they can and all the SSDs they can for freaking AI crap. So if you're still on 16 gigs of RAM and you were waiting for RAM to get better, it's not going to get better anytime soon. If you are still running like a 512 gigabyte SSD, that's not going to get better anytime soon. If you need storage, now is probably the time to do it. If you need more RAM for your system, now is probably a good time to do it. But probably the only people in good shape right now are people who are still on AM4 and running DDR4 because they're like, hey, nobody wants this shit. Except, wait, no, they've stopped making DDR4, so you're probably not in good shape there either. Crap. Yeah, that's the big thing to expect to have a run on. Like, we already had the stupid prices on video cards. CPU prices have pretty much gone, pretty flat, and motherboard prices haven't risen very much. I don't think power supplies are are going to have any big problems right now. But yeah, storage, because everything's stupid. Because these they're just shoveling crap into these data centers that's never going to be utilized to its fullest extent. Some of them are never even going to be completed because the money's going to run out.
It's going to be interesting, I think, with the data centers that start being built and then the money runs out and they don't get finished. Are they going to try to convert them to something like the world's biggest indoor flea market? What are they going to do?
I don't know, because data centers are such specialized buildings. They're not, in general, designed for human habitation and use.
No.
The majority of a data center is designed to be kept at a much lower temperature. And there's not much accommodations made for comfort or
bathrooms.
Bathrooms, yeah, because like you've got all this floor space, but nobody's supposed to be in there most of the time. So there's like maybe a few bathrooms for the few caretaking tech people who are there, but not nearly as many as would typically be in a building that size, say an office or any other, even a warehouse. Because even a warehouse, they have more warehouse workers. They have to have more bathrooms. Data centers, they don't have that many workers. So converting them to something else, to some other use, is going to be hella stupid and hella expensive. Because again, Ed Zitron, we cite him a bunch.
Not necessarily as expensive as filling them with servers that aren't going to be used.
Yeah, Ed Zitron, we cite him quite often. He's been talking quite a bit about AI and just doing the math on how much stuff like OpenAI and Anthropic and all these other companies, all the money they're promising, all the commitments they've made, how much they'd have to make in order to cover them. And it's like we're approaching 1 trillion, which is not going to happen in time. So it's going to get stupid. So you're going to have all these systems eating up RAM and memory. If you need to upgrade something, now it's RAM and memory. It's about time. So, okay. Next, this is from Eric T. Hi, Nash and Mike. I've been having a problem with the data drive in my desktop. Okay, there are no commas here or page breaks. It's a Ryzen 5800X B550, 32 gig DDR4, 1 terabyte Western Digital SSD, 2 terabyte Toshiba hard drive, RTX 3080, 12 gigabyte. There's like no breaks there at all. For the past few weeks, my data drive occasionally stops showing up in File Explorer. I'm going to assume that's the 2 terabyte Toshiba. I can't make it happen on command. Yeah, I can't make it happen on command, and I don't know what sets it off. The drive comes back after a reboot, and sometimes it's fine for days on end. I also couldn't find any information in Event Viewer, but I didn't really know what to look for. Is the hard drive going bad, or is there something wrong with my motherboard? Thank you, Eric T.
I would think the hard drive is not going bad because when they go bad, you tend to see more errors than it just not showing up. Now, that's not to say it can't react that way. So the first thing I would check is the cabling on from the motherboard to the drive and the power cable to the drive, and maybe swap them out to a different location on because the motherboard is generally, I don't know about that motherboard specifically.
Yeah, it just says B550. It doesn't say which model.
Yeah, but it should have at least one other drive connection point on there. So I would switch it to another. I'm going to assume SATA connection that on there, and see if that works, and maybe swap the power. You swap it to a different supply off the power supply, and see if that solves it. I mean, best case, all you got to do is just unplug and reseat the cables to see if that works. But if you're going to be doing that, move it over one anyway.
Yeah, and I don't think, it doesn't sound like you're overloading that power supply. It looks like the only thing on that rail for the SATA rail is that 2 terabyte hard drive. Doesn't look like you have anything else. I don't think you didn't mention anything else, but that looks like the only thing on the SATA rail is that one hard drive. Another thing you could do is there's a free software, which, bless their heart. I mean, you know what? Follow your bliss, I guess. It's called Crystal Mark Disk Info, or Crystal Disk Info. This is software that will read the smart data inside the hard drive. These are sensors that are built into your hard drive that enable it to say, this might be a problem, or this is a problem. It's the diagnostics for your hard drive. It's built in. Crystal Disk Info allows you to look those up. It's good software. It tells you the health status of the drive, temperature, and also the people doing it. I think it's a one person doing it because they freaking love their anime. Because there's the standard edition, and then there's like 3 different flavors of anime version for it. I mean, okay, sure, bless your heart. You do what you do, but yeah. Waifuware, yeah. It's free software, so, and it works, and it's good, and it's reliable. If there's anything wrong with your drive itself, if the drive is failing, if the drive has got bad read issues, if there's mechanical issues with it, any of those, this will give you an early warning on that stuff and tell you what's going on with it. So yeah, that's a good heads up. It'll also give you the same for your SSD, which is kind of nice too. So yeah, check that out. It's freaking like the waifu shit, man. Okay, I guess there is a version. There's the no waifu version. It's free. You can find their stuff at crystalmark.info. It's under their software, and you can find it. It's free. It's a good diagnostic. Something nice for everyone to have just in the background. What else? We've seen this kind of issue before because of the hard drive controllers on a motherboard. Typically with a motherboard, with SATA, when we used to do that, the chipset of the motherboard itself, the one that comes from AMD or from Intel, that has a specific number of drivers, but it's also limited to a certain number of SATA ports. If that motherboard has an additional set of SATA ports beyond what the motherboard chipset can support, they put a separate SATA controller on the motherboard. And that one connects to different SATA ports. There's a set number of SATA ports that go to the motherboard chipset, and the others go to this extra SATA controller. And we've seen in the past that extra SATA controller sometimes gets a little fucky, and it doesn't like things. Sometimes it decides it doesn't want to do its job. It takes a siesta. It's done. And that's why when you reboot the system, it comes back up. It's fine. Typically it's a driver issue.
Yeah. So one thing to check when it goes out again is go into Device Manager and see if there's anything there that's thrown a little yellow triangle or a red X and see what that says.
Yeah. If it disappears entirely, it's one thing, but if it's like not there. A way around this, a very simple way for you, this might not work for everybody. This is definitely going to work for you, is go to you, and you don't give us your motherboard manufacturer model, so we can't help exactly here, but go and look up the make and model of your motherboard and find the manual. The service manual, or whatever, the manual that comes with your motherboard will tell you which SATA ports are connected to the motherboard, the chipset controller, and which SATA ports are connected to that extra controller. If you have it plugged into one of those extra controller ports, move it to the others and make sure it's connected straight to the main chipset for the CPU. That will, if this is that chipset issue problem, it will alleviate it, because it's not really fixing it, but you're not using those extra ports because you only got the one hard drive, so it's not a big deal. That's the quick and simple fix. Otherwise, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't even, you could try getting the drivers updated, but honestly, you only have one drive, so this might come up later if you want to convert the system for other use, or you want to add a bunch more hard drives, but who does that these days? Well, I guess you could turn it to a media server. I did that. Okay, never mind. People do that these days. Never mind. I have no idea what I'm talking about. Fuck it. So pretty much to recap, make sure, use the Crystal Disk Info to make sure there's not a fault with the drive and it's on its way out. That's a good thing to check, because if it is, you're going to want to start backing stuff up off of it, because it's going to die eventually. If there's no errors there, if there's no concerns there, then and first thing, Mike said, check all the connections, check the power connection, check the data connection, because even if the power connection is a little twitchy, that's still intermediate. See, with the internal hard drive, if that loses power, it doesn't you plug the power back in, it doesn't automatically reconnect itself. Some newer ones might, but to my knowledge, with a SATA drive, if it loses power, you have to restart the machine for the machine to go, oh, okay, that SATA drive's there again. It's not hot swappable, to my knowledge. It may be. I might be incorrect about that. I've never been in a position. It's always been set in my mind, don't unplug your hard drive while the system is running. Regardless, if the power was going twitchy, then the drive would go twitchy. So check both of those connections. And if check your motherboard's manual. If there is an issue with the if there's a secondary SATA controller on the motherboard, move that SATA wire to the one that's set to the primary. And again, your motherboard's manual should tell you which one that is. And if that doesn't solve it, get back to us, because, well, we'll need more information. All right. Last one this week. This is from Derek. Hey, Nash and Mike and Floofs. In your opinion, oh boy, is there any point to getting Intel right now? I'm trying to find alternatives to AMD stuff just so I have options to consider, but the Intel stuff seems overpriced for what it is. The Core Ultra 285K is only $580 right now, but the 9950X is $540, and tests seem to say it's faster than 285K. What's the advantage to Intel? Have they announced the upgrade path? I just don't understand what they're doing. That's from Derek.
Okay, so
we
Derek,
don't either.
You're not the only one. I don't think Intel knows what they're doing.
Okay, so to break down what's going on with this generation of Intel, with for a long time, Ryzen put Intel on the back foot. Initially, Ryzen came out and it was, well, we're not quite as good as Intel, but we'll take a beating, we'll take a cut in price, and we'll give you something that works, but it's a little cheaper. And then slowly they caught up to Intel. So you've got stuff as good as Intel, but cheaper. Then they got better than Intel, but cheaper. And this was as Intel was going from the 9th generation, then the 10th. I think the 10th generation Intel was the one that it was 11th gen. That was what Gamers Nexus called a waste of sand. Because it actually went backwards in speed in some instances. And then you had Intel's solution to AMD with the 12th and 13th and 14th gen, and their solution was more power. They jacked up the electricity going through their chips to make them run as fast as they possibly could to the screaming edge of everything in order to get back in a competitive range with AMD. And they were only just in the competitive range. The problem there is, because they were pumping so much electricity through their CPUs, and because their own specifications for how motherboards were supposed to handle this were so loose, suddenly 13th generation and 14th generation CPUs, and we haven't heard any reports of 12th gen, but they may exist, they were started suffering symptoms of what's called chip degradation. You see, any silicon chip, any chip that's based, silicon based chip, it's rated to run at a certain voltage. You can exceed that voltage to a degree. That's what overclocking is. But even then, there's a safe limit. But if you run excessive voltage through a silicon chip for too long, you sort of damage the connections inside.
The magic smoke starts to leak out a little bit.
Yeah. What CPUs have a rating. To sell a CPU, you put on the box, it can run this speed at this voltage. These are the standard settings. You can exceed them if you want to try, but these are the standard settings. The problem with degradation is the chip suddenly can no longer run those out of the box speeds anymore. Not even the overclocked ones, just the ones that it came with. And the only way to get the chip to work is you have to clock it down. So suddenly your chip is now slower and it's never going to be faster again. It's ruined. Now that's why in days past, it used to be the advised you overclock at your own risk, because you could, you could torch the chip, but you could also degrade the chip and it wouldn't be as good as it used to be. So that was when it used to be, you violated your warranty and you're on your own. But now the overclocking stuff is kind of built in. That's what the boosts are and all that stuff. And the way this was working was the boost was kind of jank. The motherboard vendors didn't have a solid. Intel was just sort of saying, oh, just kind of do whatever in these loose lines here. It'll be fine. It wasn't fine because motherboards started sending too much power through the CPUs. And yet the 13th and 14th gen started suffering degradation. This is especially bad because quite often, if you're an enthusiast, or even if you're business stuff, whatnot, you tend to try to resell your hardware. You sell it used to get recoup some of what you spent on it when you move to upgrade. Now we have 2 entire generations of Intel CPUs that are suspect on the used market because they have potential. You can't look at the chip and know if it's been degraded. You'll only find that out if you plug it in and it kind of works. Then, oops, you're getting blue screens and you don't know why. So now those chips are immediately suspect and your resale value has plummeted. So you come to the Core Ultra series. This is when Intel said, we're doing a rebuilding year. First of all, they did away with like the Bears. Yes, the Bears. They did away with hyperthreading, which is the process by which a single core in a CPU can run 2 software threads at the same time. It's you have to do it in a special way to keep the threads from colliding with one another. There's also branch prediction, which that's kind of what. Yeah, that's kind of what made, with the Spectre virus and a couple other things, branch prediction is what made CPUs vulnerable to a lot of those particular. It kind of snuck in, allowed the CPU to execute code it shouldn't have, because there's a lot going on in hyperthreading. So Intel said, we're canceling hyperthreading. Shut off hyperthreading. We're going to have one thread, one core, one thread. Then,
and they changed their mind.
Well, not yet, but they brought down the power usage on the CPUs. The power levels are way down compared to what they were for 13th and 14th gen, even 12th gen. And they improved their efficiency. The Core series are actually really impressive in their own way. They have improved the efficiency of the chip so that without hyperthreading, which is cutting off like half the workload the CPU is capable of doing, even without hyperthreading, even without the extra electricity, the Core Ultra is as fast as the 14th gen was, which that's really impressive. They've made up a lot of ground. But if you're trying to sell a new CPU to enthusiasts and people looking to upgrade, you can't say, well, here's our new stuff. It's as good as our old stuff, but it costs more. That's really not going to fly. And that's been the primary problem with the Intel stuff. They had to do something. And the Core series was a good step. It just wasn't a very marketable one. The only thing Intel could have done, and what they should have done, is in addition to making these advances and improvements, they should have slashed the price. But there's a corporate culture at Intel that says we don't cut prices. They have never wanted to be the budget option. They left that to AMD. AMD were the budget CPUs. AMD were they were the crap ones. Who wants AMD? You could have Intel. We are the caviar brand. We are the Cadillac of CPUs. We don't cut our prices. And it's that corporate mentality that lets you release something like the Core Ultra 285K, which is actually in some instances slower than the 14900K, the previous generation, for more money. Now, yeah, it's not have the vulnerability that's going to cause the CPU to melt itself down slowly, but it's also more expensive, and it doesn't work quite as well as the AMD stuff either. So people looking at that are like, what am I getting here? The other thing you ask about upgrade path. Well, one of the things AMD did that was super smart and made them incredibly popular with enthusiasts was they said, okay, you get an AM4 motherboard right now, and we're going to support it for like 2 or 3 more generations. But they didn't do just 3 generations. They did 4. And technically, they're still releasing AM4 CPUs. Now, 8 years after Ryzen was 2017, 2016, 8 or 9 years after the release of their first Ryzen CPUs, you can still take that first generation Ryzen AM4 motherboard and put in the latest AM4 CPU, the Series 5000, whatever it is. It'll work. You can drop it right in there. It can still upgrade.
Yeah, you'll have to update the BIOS, but
it'll still work. Intel, on the other hand, has never been like this. If you get an Intel CPU, you are lucky to get maybe 1 to 2 CPU upgrades off that socket. Usually you get 1. Intel had what they called their tick-tock development. The tick would be, here's a new architecture with all the new stuff. And the talk would be, here's that same architecture, but we've taken some time and we've refined it. So now it's better and faster. And they both ran on the same motherboard. So you would get 2 CPU generations out of a single Intel motherboard. That kind of sucked because it meant eventually you'd have to upgrade your motherboard. AMD has kind of spoiled Ryzen users, being like, nah, we're going to keep your motherboard forever. Screw it. And I'm pretty sure that's part of why motherboard prices have kind of slowly risen over the years. So that's another thing that enthusiasts don't like, is that when you get an Intel CPU, you're pretty much saying you're going to have to upgrade that motherboard very, very soon, which is an added extra cost to your system. They haven't announced an upgrade path. In fact, I've heard rumors that this might be a 1 CPU socket. We haven't had confirmation on that yet. But if that's the case, then that sort of like Threadripper. Threadripper was terrible. Even Threadripper got 2 CPUs off that 1 socket. Having 1 CPU for 1 socket generation on the motherboard that's crap. And that even for Intel, that's super crap. So they haven't announced an upgrade path for it yet. We don't know if the Ultra 300 series are going to run on the same CPUs, run the same motherboards as the 200 series. And meanwhile, AMD's crap just keeps getting faster. And we've heard rumors about the next Ryzen CPU, which is coming out late next year, which you'll note AMD isn't exactly rushing new stuff to market. We've been on the Ryzen 9000 series for a while now. I think they might just let that sit there for close to 3 years without feeling any competitive nudge from Intel. That's really bad. What's the advantage? This is probably one of the worst generations of CPUs, not for what it does, but for how it's positioned in the market. It's terrible. Price-wise, performance-wise, compared to everything else, even compared to an older generation of the same company, it's bad. Now they've swapped out CEOs. We went from was it Martin Geller, who was an engineering CEO. He came from the engineering side of Intel, and now we have a new one. And they've decided, okay, we're bringing hyper-threading back for the next one because we can't take the hyper-threading away. We're going to try and increase performance by bringing the hyper-threading back, and we're going to be doing different things. So they are going to have a new generation soon. We don't know how competitive it's going to be with AMD. It might not be great. Intel is stuck on...
Suspect it's going to be expensive as hell.
Yeah, Intel is stuck on a process node. That's not great either because they can't shrink the die very well, their own internal fabrications. And that's limited a lot of their performance and upgrade path. If they might be forced to go to an outside company to fabricate Intel chips outside of the Intel foundry, that's not great for them either. And that makes TSMC. Yeah, it's TSM. Is it brain bad?
TSMC.
TSMC. There you go. Brain bad. That positions TSMC as a much more critical company because so much of very important stuff is being funneled through there and nowhere else. And that's even worse for Intel because their fabrications are like one of the big competitors and they're not being very competitive. If you don't understand what they're doing, they don't understand what they're doing. Right now, the best explanation is they're kind of floundering. They're trying to figure out what the heck they're going to do. They've positioned themselves badly for a few years. They took some cheap routes to try to increase performance, and it cost them. It cost them in terms of reputation. It cost them in terms of the chips are damaged. It's been a bad road. They made for like 3, 4 years, 5 years now, they've made a bunch of bad choices and they were slow to respond to Ryzen. And by the time they started to, they didn't have the technology or the plan to strike back. So the only real competition to AMD right now is AMD. You either have at the budget section people with AM4 motherboards who are holding onto them forever, or if you get to an AM5 motherboard, you have people who are like, my 7000 series is good enough, or they look and they go, the 7000 series is good enough and it's cheaper, so I'll get that instead of the 9000. They're both still viable. So yeah, the only people that AMD, in the CPU side, the only real competition AMD has for desktop, for enthusiasts, even to some degree, not as much, but to some degree, even laptops, AMD is just competing with AMD. It's not good. It's not good for Intel. So, if you don't understand what they're doing, they don't understand what they're doing, and we don't understand what they're doing. They're just kind of screwed. I hope that answered your question. Do you want to add anything, Mike? Because I babbled a bunch there.
No. I think that covers it. Honestly, I mean, it's a screwed up situation with Intel, and I don't really see how they're going to dig themselves out of it.
I don't either. I mean, it's going to be alarming if like Intel becomes a division of NVIDIA. That's going to be really alarming because at that point, NVIDIA is precarious based on where they've positioned themselves in the AI market. And AMD is still on that ledge a little bit too. So we might be in about 10, 15 years time, we might be exclusively ARM CPU based for home use. Oh my God. Not to say ARM is as bad as it used to be, but oh my God. At least ARM is not as locked down as x86. Anyway, so it's not good. Not good. None of this is good. This is if for you personally, it means that the AMD stuff is a good value. and you don't have to worry about upgrading as often because the AMD's doesn't feel any real need to hurry along competition. They're not competing with anybody. They're fine. All right, let me double check, see if we got anything else. No, I don't see anything else this week. Let me see, around the sync bit, and that's it. All righty, that's going to do it for this week. We'll be back next week at 9 p.m. Eastern. Happy as always, take your questions, put those to request@radio.air.com or put those in the comments of the YouTube, and we'll answer them. I like the opinion questions because I have opinions.
We've noticed.
I got a couple. I got a few, like 2 or 3. You want one? I've got. They'll go. It's coming in my fridge. I'll go get you some opinions. You know, got a couple. All right, folks, take care. We'll see you next time. For Mike and myself, good night.